everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me. It's such an honor and a privilege every week that you would take time to tune in and to listen to what the Lord has put in my heart. I pray that you've had a wonderful week, and I'm decreeing that your weekend is going to be even better. We have people coming on. I'm very excited about what I'm going to share with you today. It's a conversation with a very special gentleman. His name is Kenneth Lawson. Today he serves as a professor at the William S. Richardson Law School there in Hawaii, in beautiful Hawaii. And he is also the co-director of the Innocence Project, which is a powerful program that provides legal help for people that have been unjustly incarcerated. So he's doing some powerful things, but the power of his life is really not even in what he's doing now. It's made manifest when you look at what he's doing now in comparison to where he's come from. When you see him, he may be a familiar face to you. In the 90s, he was such a well-known lawyer that some of you will remember Court TV, and he had such high-profile cases, and he was such a powerful attorney that he had a number of cases on Court TV. CNN would call him in to provide legal analysis, and so he was just really a successful person. I mean, when you talk about success, whether monetary success, notoriety, by any measurement, this man was successful. In the city of Cincinnati, he was seen as the premier criminal attorney and was also seen as a leading voice in the fight there for equality and civil rights. And so his resume is absolutely amazing. But what doesn't show up in his resume is that at the pinnacle, at the top, I mean, at the time when he was the most successful, he was also an addict and went from the penthouse to the penitentiary. I mean, this guy had a remarkable fall and a remarkable resurrection. And so I just wanted to give him a platform to be able to testify, to be able to share his story with you, because I believe that his story is going to encourage you, and it's going to stir confidence in you that no matter what your past looks like, I mean, your future looks so much better. So join me as I spend some time with Kenneth Lawson. All right. So as I told you, I have a special guest with me today, and I'm very, very excited to introduce you if you don't know him. Just a remarkable person, a remarkable man of God. His name is Ken Lawson, and his story is something that everybody needs to be familiar with, because it's a story of tragedy, it's a story of triumph, it's a story of true redemption. It really reveals that our God is a God of redemption. And so, Ken, I welcome you today, man. I just thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you're suffering where you are in Hawaii. So, Ken,
it's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Let me get a little bit of the preliminaries out of the way, and it will give more people time to come on as well. Ken is a professor at the William S. Richardson School of Law there in Hawaii, and he is also the co-director of the Innocence Project there. And so he's doing a lot of things, got his hands in a lot of different places, but every place that he puts his hands, people are uplifted. And so, once again, brother, thank you for coming on and just being willing to share a piece of your journey. It's so extensive and it's so powerful that I'm going to put you on the spot and just say to you, I don't know if we can get this in one session. And so in front of everybody, I'm asking you to make a commitment that if we can't get to it all.
What a move. What a move.
Yeah, I know how to work it, man.
I'll be
The
more
other,
than happy to come
great.
back as many times as you need me to.
Great, great. The other reason I love this brother, this is one of my homeboys. So he is a fellow Cincinnatian, and we have a lot of intersecting relationships and experiences, and so it's just another part of how the Lord knitted us together. I've got to give a shout out to our mutual friend, Ken Price, who had the wisdom to quarterback this and get us sort of lined up and scheduled to be able to have this conversation. So I want to thank you, Ken Price. All right. So, Ken, I want to really start from the beginning because there's so much in just your early experiences and how those experiences shaped the person that you would become. And so I just want to give you a few moments. You can just start wherever the Lord leads you, and I'll jump in when I feel it's necessary. But just tell us about yourself and help us to understand, your journey.
Oh wow, that's such an open-ended
Yeah.
question. Yeah, and it's hard to know where to begin because a lot, when I talk about becoming more self-aware, and telling you about myself and where my journey began, it's almost coming from the viewpoint. Well, it is coming from the viewpoint of where I sit at now, because I didn't know a lot of stuff about me until I, got sober
Yeah.
in 2007. But like as you said, I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was placed in an orphanage. I was taken from my mom at birth. I was placed in an orphanage for 2 years until I was adopted. And I was adopted into a family where everybody in the family was just a dark skinned black, and
Mhm.
so, I talk about this a lot. From a very young age, I just didn't feel like I fit in. And again, Pastor, looking back on it now, Bishop, when I first looking back on it now, I can realize now it's not so much what happened to me as I was coming up, but it was the way I was reacting to life,
Hmm.
and so just, because there's nothing that my family did that made me feel apart from and not a part of. There's
Okay.
nothing that when I went to school, there was nothing that any other kids did that made me feel apart from and not a part of, almost like, just sitting in a world where it just seemed to me that everybody seemed to really get like, I mean, I was raised Catholic, and I remember sitting in
Okay.
church and just thinking, man, everybody here knows how to be good. You know what I mean? And I read the Bible, and I had it
Yeah.
taught to me, and I could try to be good for 2 or 3 or 4 days, that, maybe a week or so. Then I
Yeah.
revert back to that same behavior, and it just felt like, I was a failure. And I
Do,
couldn't
can,
understand why it is that I just felt
uh,
disconnected.
I was going to ask you, during that period of time, was the issue of being adopted, was that something that was always in your mind?
No, no. I mean,
Okay.
because my family had always told me I was adopted, from
Okay.
from the beginning, from Jump Street, and so, um, no, it wasn't that. I thought it was initially. That's a good question, Bishop. But I thought it was initially. But looking back at it, it was just because no matter where I went, that's how I felt.
Hmm.
No matter where I went, I just felt apart from.
Okay.
It could be a family event, the dinner table, it could be church, it could be school, it could be on a playground, right? I just felt like I had to fit in because I didn't fit in. So yeah, and so, and like I said, Bishop, and for whatever reason, it felt like I had a hole in my soul, and
Hmm.
I can't remember what age it was. I know it was a young age when I just really started truly believing that emptiness that I felt, that feeling of feeling apart from and not really being a part of, that I could overcome that by just getting a good education, right? Getting a
Okay.
good job, making a lot of money, becoming somebody. That if I could become somebody, right? Then that would fill this emptiness. Then I would feel connected to you. Because once you recognize it, that I'm a lawyer or I'm a doctor or I'm some big, fancy person, once you see that, then you'll accept me, you'll like
Hmm.
me. And once that happens, then I can accept myself. And again, this is me looking back on it.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm measuring my life you know, they talk about life being a rat race, right?
Yeah.
And so I measure my life really on how good I'm doing by how much I got.
Okay.
If I can get more stuff than you, then I'm winning this race that we call life. The
Okay.
more that I have, the more that I'm winning this race. And so I'm trying to fix myself from by grabbing outside things, trying to fill this inside hole.
Wow. So at that point, your identity was totally caught up in just the issue of what you had, what you possessed. And did that start as you got older, or was that something that, I guess what I'm trying to understand is how much did this issue of adoption play into your identity? How much did it play into your lack of identity?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really, really good question. And you know, we had prayed before we started this, and you talked about getting in the areas that I never addressed before.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those areas. You know, I don't know. I don't. I know it played a part. I really do. I believe it played a part because I didn't know where I came from. You know, and so that was part of the journey and trying to fill that hole. Maybe the reason why I feel disconnected. Maybe the reason why I feel apart from because I don't know who I am.
Hmm.
You know, and back then in Cincinnati, in Ohio, that we had closed adoption records, and so
Okay.
what that means is that legally, that my biological parents, whoever gave me up for adoption, once that happened, my birth certificate changed, and they would never know who I was, you know, my new legal name, and
Okay.
vice versa for me. I could never go back and track them. Um, um, you know, the only way to go back and try to find your parents is you would go down to whatever agency you were adopted through. Me, it was Catholic Charities, and then they would tell you two bits of. They would give you a description of your parents, physical description, and they would tell you what hospital you were born in. And
Okay.
with that little bit of information, the majority of people could not find. You know, and so yeah, I think it played that part. You know, I was teased a lot. You know, always having to answer that question. How come you don't look like your brother? 'Cause like I said,
Okay.
everybody in my family was dark skinned black. Um, and so me wanting you to like me instead of just telling you I don't know, right? I would make up stories that would make you feel sorry for me. And
Wow.
if you felt sorry for me, then you'd like me. So you know, I remember telling kids that my father died in Vietnam War, my mother was
Okay.
killed in a car accident, and these people, you know, were kind enough to take me in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and going back into that identity thing, I think that's the way I lived the majority of my life. You know,
Okay.
because my whole belief was, if you knew what I was thinking, if you really knew, honestly, how I truly felt, if
Yeah.
you really knew some of these thoughts that go on in my mind
Yeah.
that I can't control, you're not gonna like me.
Wow.
If I really uncover to you some of the things that I think, some of the things that I believe,
Yeah.
some of the doubts that I have, um, some of the second guesses that I have about decisions that I make, the fact that I really don't like me. How can I
Wow.
tell you that, right? That I don't believe that I'm smart, that I don't believe
Wow.
that I'm, you know, um,
See, what's so remarkable, a lot of people wouldn't know this if they're not familiar with you, but you could not live anywhere near Cincinnati, Ohio, and not know the name Ken Lawson. This brother was touted as the premier attorney, the premier criminal attorney, and just a man of just unbelievable talents in the courtroom. And to hear someone like him make those kinds of statements, it's mind blowing because people would not have known that you were in that type of internal doubt and that type of internal crisis at the peak of your career.
yeah, yeah. No, like I said, you know, going back to being young, and being adopted, you know, my parents put me in a school in right outside the city of Cincinnati called St. James, and it was a
Yeah.
Catholic church in Wyoming, Ohio, which is like back then was like 99.9%, if not 100% white.
Yeah.
And so, you know, being called the N word in
Yeah.
school at a young age, and I remember, man, to show you how powerful that was. My mother finally in the 5th grade told me and my sister that she was going to let us go to Princeton. The first day of school, I was in the bathroom. My sister kept saying, she came in, she said, "What's taking you so long in the bathroom?" And I just kept looking in the mirror. She said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, I'm afraid to go to school because the kids are going to really think that I'm ugly,
Wow.
and
Wow.
that was,
Mm.
and so, and then when I went to Princeton and I was there that first week, and some of the girls liked me, right? And
Hmm.
people, kept saying, I'm not, and so when I found out that I wasn't ugly, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
think of the power that type of racism has,
Yeah.
to where, that they can put in our kids' minds,
Wow.
um, that we're less than.
Yeah. Wow.
But I'm just thinking this is the way life is, right? So I do believe that if I get all this material stuff, if I get a title, if I marry the right woman, if I make a lot of money, somehow I can live happily ever after. And so happiness was always something that was going to come once I get to a certain point in my life.
Okay.
I could never enjoy what they talk about, enjoy the journey. I could never stay in the moment.
Okay.
Um,
Did you
then I
start
knew,
out in criminal law? You didn't start out in criminal law,
no,
did you?
I started out at a corporate law firm, and I remember being in law school, and I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer from the time that I was in grade school. I remember reading Malcolm X's book, and his dream was to become a lawyer, and I wanted to follow Malcolm. I said, well, I want to be a lawyer too, and I just loved the way that he argued with people and was able to debate people, and so he really inspired me from a very young age. But anyway, but when I got to law school, I was married and we had 2 kids when I was in law school, my wife and I.
Okay.
And so I remember saying, I want to be a criminal defense lawyer. And the students and the professors, you ain't gonna make no money doing that. Criminal defense lawyer, y'all don't make no money. They don't
Right.
make nothing, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to be a lawyer making some money, you need to do corporate law. And my thought at that point, Bishop, was, well, um, I do want to make money. If I do make it into corporate law and I'm making a lot of money, even though it's not the type of area that I want to practice in, at least I'm making a lot of money. That'll make me happy.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I remember as a University of Cincinnati School of Law, College of Law, former state senator Eric Kearney was in my class, and Eric, in fact, we were teammates. And I remember busting my butt, man, and I got a job at the biggest law firm in the city of Cincinnati when I graduated, Taft, Stennis, and Hollister.
Yeah.
And that law firm had not had any black attorneys. They had no female partners. And keep in mind, this, 1989.
Yeah.
The firm goes all the way back to President Taft. And I remember going in there thinking, well, I'm gonna be making, way more money than my father ever made, my mother ever made. I'm 6 figures. I'm 25 years old, and I'll be happy. And after 4 years of doing that, I had the car, I had
Yeah.
the big house. My wife and I, we bought a dream house. I had the clothes, I had the Porsche.
Yeah.
I'm on the cover of local magazines in Cincinnati,
Yeah.
30 under 30, being future leaders under 30 years old. And if you would have walked up to me and asked me, Ken, or just told me, Ken, I saw you on the cover of Cincinnati magazine, man, you got it made.
Hmm.
I'm so glad I met you, and you look great. I don't tell you, you know what, Bishop, I got everything I ever dreamed of. There's absolutely nothing wrong in my life, but I wake up in the morning, some mornings, and I'm depressed.
Wow.
Uh, I can go to bed at night thinking, Ken, you do have a great life. You got a beautiful wife. You got kids. You're in a nice neighborhood. You're in a mansion.
Yeah.
You want for nothing. And I can go to bed and think, you got a great life, and wake up the next morning and lay in bed thinking, is this what life is all about?
Wow.
Why is this hole still in my soul? Why do I
Wow.
still feel empty?
Mm.
Even though everything I thought that was going to make me happy isn't filling this hole.
Wow.
And to a man like me, Bishop, it doesn't look like it's a spiritual hole.
Yeah.
It don't, because
Yeah.
I had been to church.
Yeah.
See, I've been to church, I went to Sunday school, and
Yeah.
like I said, I was raised Catholic, and I was raised Baptist, and we went to Lincoln Heights Missionary Baptist Church,
Yeah.
and I remember thinking, but I never was able to connect with God.
Hmm.
the way that I would see others do. Right.
Wow.
And I just kept thinking, and instead of having a loving relationship with God, I mean, I'll be honest, I was just afraid of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I would
Yeah.
say prayers to God. I would tell God things I just thought he wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if I don't tell him what he wants to hear, he could send a lightning bolt down and strike
Yeah.
me down, or inflict me with a terrible disease. So I'm
Yeah.
sitting there, and so I'm sitting there telling God that I love him instead of just saying, you know what, I'm scared of you, man. So
Yeah.
I'm praying to you because I don't want nothing bad to happen to me.
Wow. Wow.
Right. And if I knew nothing bad was going to happen to me, I wouldn't be praying to you. But I
Yeah.
fear that if I get out of hand
Yeah.
and break one of these commandments,
Yeah.
you're going to spank me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, going back, so you asked me about the law firm. So I'm at that law firm. And again, that hole is in my soul. And I remember thinking, like, as I told you earlier, I said, well, maybe it's because this hole is there because I don't know my roots, right?
Okay.
If I just knew where I came from, I could feel centered here on earth. Because I really do feel like I'm going through earth like, almost like I'm from a foreign
Okay.
land, or from a different period of time, or just from a different planet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so just really feeling apart from. So I'm thinking, and so I went, and my wife and I, we went down to Catholic Charities, and I went and asked the lady, that I was there to search for my mother, and I was it was my first year practicing law at the Taft Law Firm when this happened.
Okay.
So this would have been like 1990. And the lady, she said two things. She said, I didn't know this. She said, your mother was white, and she said she was Italian. And she said, I kept asking what hospital I was born in, because I needed to know what hospital so I could go try to find, if it was all possible, records on trial. And so what she told me was, she kept saying, you were born in Hamilton County, Ohio. She said that 3 times. And finally I said, look, lady, I know what hospital, I know my legal rights. You got to tell me what hospital I was born in. And she's like, Ken, you was born in Longview Mental State Institution.
Wow.
And for those that's not from Cincinnati,
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's a mental asylum.
Yeah.
And so that's when my wife, I often say, but that's when my wife looked at me and she's like, okay, now, so certain things are really clear to me now, right? Right. And really, honestly, man, because a lot of times, Bishop, I was going through life, man, and the biggest question I would ask myself was, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you, man? You said that you weren't going to do that no more.
Yeah.
You said that you wasn't, you wasn't going to go and lie to your wife over and over again.
Yeah.
And I would mean those promises to myself. Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to clean up my act, then I'll be right back. And so when she told me that, I was like, well, maybe I do. So anyway, and it was really, it was frightening to hear both of those things, both being that I was half white, because I didn't know.
Wow.
And so, going back to my law practice, and even to this day, I think part of the reason why I'm really, really strong on civil rights, and really, really stay true to that message of uplifting our people, comes from of what happened to me along this journey.
Okay.
I think finding out those two things really sent me into like a whirlwind. It really had me think. And so I ended up finding my mother. I found my mother. It's too long of a story, but when she announced to her family that she was pregnant by a black man at the dinner table, her oldest brother broke her collarbone.
Wow.
And then they put her into Longview Mental State Institution. She was 4 months pregnant with me.
Okay.
And what happens is, if you find your biological parent back then, you can go back to the agency if you think you found them and tell them, look, I think I found my mother or my father, and then you tell them the name, and they will confirm it for you. That way you don't run up to somebody and think that you're related to people and you're really not. Anyway, we get this lady from California, and she says, yes, I was there, 1963. The father was black. I had a baby boy. And I just knew that was my mother. And she knew I was her son. And I went back to Rhoda and I told her, and she's like, no, that's not your mother. Not just I burst out crying. And she said, so she went to get me some tissue, and she had a legal pad that was sitting on the table, and I was reading it upside down, and I read D OM, date of marriage 12/12/58. And so I went down to the public library in Cincinnati, went through the microfiche, and because back then, I hope they still do it now, but the Cincinnati Post would print anybody that applied for a marriage license.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It got printed. And so I went down there and I just looked for any lady with an Italian last name that applied for a marriage license in December 1958. Then I took those names back down to probate court. One match, and that was Stella Angelo. And I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here. Let me turn this real. But there's a picture behind me of a boxer.
Yeah.
And I was so I went back after I found out that my mother was Stella Angelo, and the Catholic charities, they confirmed that. Okay. And so I went back and I started calling all the Angelos because I didn't know if my mother was still alive. So I got this my cousin, his name is Bud. And I called him and I said, "Look, I'm Stella's son. I want to see if she's still alive." And the first thing he said was, "Oh, you Ezra's boy." And I said,
wow.
"Ezra?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, Ezra Charles was your father." Wow. And so and that's him in the picture back there. Yeah. And so what happened was, and I didn't know this, right? And so it was just like, and so he put me in touch with my Aunt Marie, and I called my Aunt Marie, one of my mother's older sisters. She said, "Yeah, your mother's still living."
Wow.
She's at a place called Tender Mercies, and Tender Mercies, Bishop Clay, was 2 blocks away from the Taft Law Firm. My mother had been 2 blocks away from me this entire time.
Wow.
Man. And so my mother was there. And so what my aunt said was, she's like, "Look, if you want to meet your mother," she said, "I'll tell you what." She said, "Your mother still goes to Hardy's restaurant every day at 12 noon on 9th Street.
Wow. And
she says now she still got some serious mental health issues, and she still likes drinking. And she said, but if you want to meet your mother, I'll meet you down at Hardy's tomorrow at noon. And then she said, but I'll tell you, if you let your mother know who you really are, she's going to be coming down to that law firm, that fancy law firm you're with, and she's going to be embarrassing you and stuff like that because she still has a lot of problems." She said, "What I suggest is that you let me introduce you as my friend Joe, and that way you get to meet your mother, see who she is, and still protect yourself from being, harassed by her."
Okay.
And so I met her, and the next day came, and I remember being so afraid because,
Whew. Wow.
Coming up, the one of the reasons why I would tell my friends that my father died in Vietnam and my mother died in a car accident, it's because being adopted, you don't know. I mean, your belief is they just didn't want you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Is that that you wasn't good enough.
Yeah. And
so that's what you believe in. So how do you tell somebody, your young friends or whatever, that says, why'd your parents give you up for adoption? How you tell them it's because they didn't want me, right? Yeah, I'm not good enough. And so then you make up stories. Well, I made up stories like that. And so I was so afraid that my mother was going to reject me. And so I remember I was supposed to meet my aunt at the Hardee's.
Ken, hold it. This is so significant because I know that you know this, but I just want to state back. I want you to hear it as well. So here you are. You've climbed out of whatever being adopted, whatever chasm that it put you in. You climbed out of that. You went to school. You got a law degree. You're with the top law firm in Cincinnati. Your mother gave birth to you in a mental institution, and she's still in a mental facility at this point, basically, and you're worried about her rejecting you.
Yeah.
This issue of identity is so significant because, in your rational mind, you know that like just doesn't make sense because you're the success. But that's what happens with broken identity. I'm sorry, I just needed to put a pin in
No,
that
no,
because
no.
that's so okay, let's keep going. Let's
No, no.
keep
But
going.
Bishop, you don't. I become more aware of self as I continue on this journey too.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you pointing that out, because I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm still have to process that.
Yeah.
But you're right. So I mean, I was literally afraid.
Mm.
And I remember going. I eventually met my aunt down there that Wednesday, and we were outside. And so I had never seen her before. I had just talked to my Aunt Maria. She was a real spark plug. She passed away a few years ago.
Okay.
But what was cool is that they knew about me. They knew that my mother had
Okay.
a young kid. They didn't know who I was.
Okay.
They just knew, this obviously because they all knew she went to the hospital. She had a baby. They just didn't know who this baby was. And so when I called, they weren't surprised that I was looking for my mother.
Okay.
They just didn't know that it was Ken Lawson, right? Because they never knew my real name.
Okay.
And so when I went down, and so anyways, we started walking into the Hardys. It was noon on 9th Street, downtown, so it was crowded. And she started guiding me over to this table. And I seen a lady, and she looked like a bag lady.
Okay.
She's sitting by herself. We've seen people where you could tell that they've had a tough life. You can just look at them and and you can see what that life is it's written all, that tough life is just written all over them.
Yeah.
And because everybody kept telling me before I went down there, I talked to my aunt, my cousin Bud, and Aunt Marie's, my other cousins over the phone. And they kept, so I wanted to know as much about my mother before I met her. And everybody kept saying, your mother was beautiful. She was pretty. She loved to dress up and stuff like that. So when I saw her.
Wow.
It wasn't the same person that they had been describing. I could see what life had done to her.
Yeah.
So anyway, my aunt, she takes me over to the table and she says, Stella, this is my friend Joe. And then my mother said, hi, Joe. And then I just told her, Bishop, I said, Mom, I'm your son,
Wow.
And then she just blurted out, Tony, like that. She had a big smile on her face.
Wow, she called you Tony. She had named you. Wow.
Yeah. And it was at that point that I knew that she just didn't reject me. It wasn't that she didn't like me. She just couldn't handle me.
Yeah.
Based on her mental condition. So we ended up having a good relationship, as good as it could be, because she still struggled with mental health issues, pretty bad, paranoid schizophrenic. So there were times when, we'd be out and she'd just start yelling and screaming or something like that. That was beautiful. And I ended up talking to my sisters in Chicago, half sisters in Chicago, as its kids, because they knew he had a son out of wedlock. They just didn't know who it was.
At that point, like once you met her and, you had a chance to build relationship with her, was that filling the hole in your soul?
No.
I mean, was that okay?
No, it didn't. It didn't. And so again, I think, one thing that I tell my law students now. So I'm 4 years in the TAF now. Mom didn't feel, finding out my roots didn't feel that hole in my soul at all. I thought it would. And so I just couldn't take working there anymore. It's almost like, you had those relationships where people say, you guys look so great together. We've all been in relationships where all the parents, everybody like, you guys are met. And then I'm in there like, I can't stand it.
It just don't work, right?
It ain't working. But instead of me saying it ain't working, I'm thinking, well, maybe everybody else knows something I don't know.
Okay.
And so I stayed into that relationship. So everybody kept saying, well, you got a great job. You work in the corporate law. But I didn't love it. But because everybody kept saying, this is, you're lucky, you're your first Black lawyer in this 100 law firm, I'm thinking, well, maybe they know something I don't know. So I'm trying to force that relationship instead of doing what I believe God had me here to do.
Yeah.
And so I remember after 4 years of doing it, just like being in one of those relationships, sooner or later, just like, look, I got to go,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
Because it ain't working.
Right.
And so I remember telling my wife, I said, like, I'm leaving. I'm gonna start my own law practice. Got him Les Gaines. Went on to become a
Yeah.
judge, and he had like he was in a semi-retirement. He had like 5 cases left, and I said, Judge, what are you gonna be doing with this law office up here in Avondale? He said, I'm closing it down. I said, well, look, I'm ready to lead this firm. And so we met a couple of times, and he said, well, you can have it, brother.
Yeah.
And so I went home and I told
Wow.
my wife, I said, I'm leaving this law firm. And she said, you never, she said, what you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna start my own law firm and do criminal defense. And at that time, I had not tried a case before.
Wow.
And so she's like, well, how do you know that you're gonna succeed? You never even tried a case. How do you know you're gonna be any good? And I had a moment of clarity. I really did. And I tell my students this, and I think Mark Twain said it best. He said, the 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah.
And not just here in this moment, but why? What is your purpose?
Yeah.
And I think when it's God's gift that has been
Yeah.
given to us, right? And I think each of us has that gift. And part of our
Absolutely.
journey is to find out what is your gift from God, because it's unique to you.
Yeah.
Right? It's unique to you. And then once we find out what that gift is the other part is to give it away.
Yeah.
But that fear, we talk about biblical sayings and scripture, and it talks about that fear is not from God. The spirit of fear is not from God. So if it ain't from God, where is it from?
Yeah.
Right? We know.
Yeah.
But that fear of failure, that fear of, if I get out there and do this, people gonna laugh at me. If I get out there and do this and I'm not successful, then they're gonna talk about me. If I get out there and take this other job, what if I ain't gonna be able to do it? That type of fear will keep me in a place where God don't want me to be.
That's exactly right.
See, I'm making good money at Taft Sustenance and Hollister. More money than anybody in my family ever made. I'm living a good life, but I don't like the job. I can get used to being miserable.
Yeah.
I can get used to working a job to where I'm like, man, to where I'm miserable. But I'm also know that, what? At least it's paying the bills.
Now, at this time, like before you made this transition, in terms of the alcohol and just the addiction side, were you already in the throes of that?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, I was like, no. Nowhere near it. My thought then was, I just had a moment of clarity. And I just knew. And I think that once you know that this is your gift, what you do with it may not make sense to other people. And the reason for that is it ain't their gift.
Right, exactly.
Right? It ain't gonna make sense to you, right?
Yeah.
What makes sense to you is what you know.
Yeah.
And so
here's the other powerful thing about that gift concept. Whatever your gift is, whatever God has put you on the face of the earth to do, it's always beyond your human reach. So it's never something that you can just, in the resources of your humanness, just grab and apprehend. It's going to require a reach, and that reach is faith. So you were at a place where you literally were taking a faith step. You had never tried a case, but there was something in you, and that's what that gift does. It presses us to reach towards things that we wouldn't reach for otherwise.
And they talk about that Holy Spirit. They talk about that spirit that lives within us, right? That's what that is, man.
Yeah.
And I could never, I swear to God, I could never connect that. I could connect God, the Father and the Son, but I never could connect that Holy Spirit within me.
Wow.
Right? That comforter that they talk about, right?
Yeah.
Until, I started my spiritual journey. And even then it took me a while to really understand that that's what that is. That's another story, right? And so I went out there and in my first year, I'm broke, I'm not making that much money, but I'm in the moment.
Okay.
Right? Now, right now that weekend is going too slow. Mondays when the courts start opening up, right? And so like I tell my students and I tell my kids, if it's your gift and God's not gonna give you a gift where you don't love what you're doing. He ain't gonna do that, right? It's just like, that's just the old God that I believed in would just, have me trudging a road of just
Yeah.
unhappy destiny, right?
Yeah.
And so I just enjoy doing it. So I'm in the moment. I'm loving what I'm doing. And then that's when I had a case that was on court TV. And this guy, it was in Price Hill, man. This guy in Cincinnati, this
Yeah.
guy killed him on the front porch. And back now everything's on videotape, but back in the mid '90s, man, it was hard. You didn't see a murder on videotape.
Right.
And so this guy actually had recorded his own killing of this man on his front porch. And so I took that case and I was on court TV nationwide. And then shortly after that, Deion Sanders was playing for the Cincinnati Reds and the Dallas Cowboys. And people don't remember this, but Deion got arrested coming out the stadium.
That's right.
By a police officer and was charged with 5 charges. And I remember his agent had contacted me and said, Deion wants you to be his lawyer. And going back to this hole in my soul, I remember
Wow.
thinking,
And Dion was huge then too.
yeah. He was like, I thought, he was playing both sports.
That's right.
He was like LeBron is now.
That's right.
And so I remember thinking, man, if I can win this case, then I'll be made. Then that my law practice would be set. This hole in my soul, because what an opportunity. And so I remember working my butt off on that case, man, and won every single charge. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And going back after the verdict, we was all over the news. We was on ESPN. We was on international news.
Yeah.
That's how big Deion was back then. And I remember going back to his penthouse, and the Reds were playing the Cincinnati Pirates that night. And his penthouse was like, my office was downtown at this point. And Deion's penthouse was like 2 blocks from my office. So we went over there after the verdict, and he had to go. We, kicked it for about an hour. He had to go and get ready to play the Pirates. And I was walking back to my office, and it was a sunny day, and I can still see it vividly in my mind. And I'm looking down at the pavement. I'm watching my feet hit the ground. And the thoughts that's going through my head is, why is this hole still in my soul?
Wow.
Right? Why? I literally had just won the biggest case. Most lawyers would have died for that case.
Yeah.
Right? I had just won the biggest case of my career and many lawyers' careers. And within that bit of time, I remember walking back into my office, and the staff had seen everything on the news. And so they had balloons and stuff up, and I remember getting angry. I was like, man, take all that stuff down.
Wow.
We got to, and they were, and the look of their face was just shocked because I was yelling.
Yeah.
And I wasn't mad at them. I didn't know. It looked like I was mad. I'm like, y'all in here partying. We got to we got more cases. We got more clients. We have more stuff to do for tomorrow. Get back to work.
Wow.
And I really didn't understand it. And as I, when I go through this journey, a lot of things that I was doing, I truly didn't understand, and never would have thought that it was a spiritual a solution.
Yeah.
If you would have told me, what, Ken, your solution is God, I'd have probably cussed you out.
Yeah.
Right? Because it didn't look like that. What it looked to me was, well, maybe I just don't have enough stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe the reason why I'm not happy is because I ain't making enough money.
Wow.
Maybe the reason why I'm not happy is because my wife is getting on my nerves. Maybe the reason why I can't, be okay is because I'm worried about all my kids.
Wow.
If I stop getting the calls from the teachers or people, right? I'm running my life as if I need everything out here to be perfect in order for me to be okay in here.
Wow.
Which means I got to control everybody around me.
Man,
right?
That's where that anger would come from too. It's like when you're trying to fill that hole, and every time you get the next thing that you thought was going to fill it and it doesn't, it just angers you.
Yeah, because I can't figure, because I have in my mind, right? I had this blueprint of what my life is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
My life, once I get here and once I get this job, my life is going to be like this. And that's the blueprint I put in my mind.
Yeah.
And then when the reality of life doesn't match up with that blueprint, for a man like me, there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Right. And then there comes out anger.
Yeah.
Right. Because I had that expectation. Right. I remember, going home sometimes thinking, okay, I'm going to get home, hard days. work and the house is going to be neat, kids, right? Then you get home, the house a mess. Then I get angry at everybody else.
Yeah.
And it looks
Yeah.
like they my problem.
Yeah.
It looks like that judge is my problem. It looks like that prosecutor is my problem. It
Yeah.
looks like my wife is that problem. It looks
Yeah.
like my kids, right? And it's, right, it looks like society's my problem. President Trump is my problem.
Yeah.
Right? All these things is my problem.
Yeah.
And,
That's so
and I
good,
don't
man.
know that I'm my problem, right?
Yeah. Wow. I'm my problem.
Yeah, because if you my problem, then I don't have a solution.
Yeah.
Once I realized on this spiritual journey that I'm my problem, my sponsor, when I got sober, he said, here's what I want you to do, man. He said, I want you to take one of those yellow stickies and I want you to write, you're looking at the problem on it and stick it on your mirror.
Wow.
In your bathroom. And every morning I would get up and it said, and I would look at it and would say, you are looking at the problem.
You are looking at the problem. Wow.
And so that gets back into that forgiveness thing that you've been teaching me in church that I just couldn't get.
Yeah.
Because see, if I have a resentment against you, let me back up. So when I got sober, part of the things that we had to do, and it's what they teach in the Bible. All this stuff was just biblical teachings put in a way for me to understand it. But I had to do that inventory about the people that I resented, and I had my father on there that raised me.
Okay.
And and so now it would be considered child abuse, but there were times when my father would beat me to the point that I was bleeding.
I can relate. I can relate, brother. That generation.
With the extension cords and stuff like that. And so I remember being so angry. And so, because he would drink, man, and then he would just start, because he was an alcoholic, and he would drink, and then he would just start, and so, I mean, one time my brother George, who's younger than me, saw me getting beat so bad that he threw up, and I mean, and so I remember being angry at my dad.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to and so what I would do is I would write out my resentment and then I would read it to my sponsor. And then his role is to tell me what's my part in it. And so I'm angry at my father. Why? Because he used to beat me when I was a kid.
Yeah. Right.
And what does this affect? Well, it affected my self-esteem. It affected my security and stuff like that. Okay, now what's your part in it? And so I kept saying, so he asked me, what's your part in it? I was like, man, I don't have a part in that. I'm young. What difference? Even if what I did was wrong, even if I deserved punishment, I shouldn't have been punished like that. And he kept saying, what's your part in it? And I kept saying, look, I'm telling you, man, I'm 7 years old, 8 years old. And he asked, so I'm getting mad at my sponsor. Right. And so I said, look, I ain't had no part in it. He said, slow down. He said, your part is that you're still holding on to it.
Wow.
He said, that's your part.
Wow.
He said, each time you think about it, is it your father beating you or is it you doing it to you?
Wow.
He said, that's the resentment. You keep resenting, you keep reliving the same thing, thinking your father's the problem.
Wow.
He says, so if you forgive, right, in order you have to forgive him, right? And so, and again, keep in mind that my ego was such that I expect you to forgive me. When I wrong you, hey, Bishop Clay, I'm sorry, man, I lied to you. You know what I mean? I expect you to forgive me. Now let you cross me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, what? You did what?
Right.
And so I started seeing all these things. So once I was able to forgive my father, right? Because again, if he's my problem, then I don't have a solution. If I know I'm my problem, then I know I got a solution.
Yeah.
As long as I know I'm my problem, then I know I can either forgive you, or if I've done you wrong, come to you and say, hey, Bishop Clay, man, let me make amends. I'm sorry. What can I do to make it right?
Yeah.
Because I wronged you, right? And so it gives me those solutions that you have been preaching about, been teaching about for years. But I don't see that these type of resentments or me not going to you after I wronged you has blocked me from God.
Yeah.
Right? Has blocked me from that spirit, that sunlight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, all these things and all these resentments, all this anger is blocking me from God. I didn't see God's laws the way back then, the way I see them now. I saw it as, if you violate these rules, you're gonna be punished. And now I can see, when God says vengeance is mine, what he's saying is, you can't handle it.
Yeah.
You can't handle it.
Yeah.
You can't handle resentments.
Yeah.
So when you become angry at somebody, I'm telling you, you need to forgive them.
Yeah.
Vengeance should be mine.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because the more that you hold that resentment in your heart, the more you get separated from me.
Yeah.
And Ken, once you separated from me, you lost.
Yeah.
My sponsor, when I came into recovery, told me, he said, look here, man, you had two, your job is to be a service to God and his children. God's job is to run your life.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can do that, and if you know, right, that there is a God and you ain't him, as long as you know those two things, you got a good start.
Yeah.
And so going back to it, looking at it from this viewpoint, after going through hell and back, I could see those things, Bishop, that you all had been teaching me when I was in the church, but I had to learn it a different way.
Yeah.
And so now I don't see, when I pray to God now, I talk to him like he's my father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Hey, and I tell him, man, look, when I'm going through hell, I'm like, hey, man, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? But I trust you, right? Like, some of this stuff ain't making no sense to me.
Yeah.
And so the more I can sit back and stay within my own hula hoop, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And stay within, and not go outside my hula hoop.
Yeah.
And allow you to be who you are.
Yeah.
Then I don't have to have those resentments, those expectations, because it's those expectations of how I think life should be that runs me into that collision course.
Yeah.
In other words, I had to quit playing God.
Yeah.
Right? Because once I tell you here's how life should be, that means I'm playing God.
Yeah.
Because God tells me how, God has laid down our path.
Yeah.
Not me. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I may think I know what my path is,
right.
But once that veers off to the wrong side, what I think is the wrong side, then I think somehow that life ain't going right.
Yeah.
And because when I look back on my life, I've been the worst judge of what's good and bad for me. Some of the things I thought was the best things for me helped get me sent to the penitentiary.
Wow.
Right. And some of the things that I thought was bad for me have been the best things that ever happened to me in my life.
That's good.
Right.
That's good. Yeah. It's it's like when Paul said all things are working together for the good of them that love God. And he didn't say only the good things. He said all things. And it's all necessary. You know, one of the things that I try to teach is God doesn't waste anything. He doesn't waste our failures. He doesn't waste our successes. He doesn't waste our tears. He doesn't waste everything that we experience in life. God is able to put that in the pot, and he's able to stir it up and pour out purpose, pour out destiny.
Yeah.
And you're a living witness of that. The thing, I want to go back and grab this one idea that you talked about, because I thought it was really, really significant. You said that you covered up, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the point, I think, was you covered up the lack of identity with ego.
Yeah.
So on one side, internally, you're feeling like unsure and all of those other things, but what you're promoting on the outside is this confidence. I mean, is that sort of the flavor of what you were saying?
Absolutely. I mean,
the reason I think that's significant, Ken, is because a lot of times the people that we confront in life that we may feel, oh, that person, they're just arrogant, or they're, we may not like, the veracity that they exhibit, but a lot of times the very people that are the most aggressive and their egos are the biggest are people that are suffering with that low self-esteem down on the inside, and that's the way that they cover it. That's the way that they try to combat it.
Absolutely. I think because I'm trying to portray to you the person I think you want to see.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, Bishop, for me anyway, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, it was fear-based. It was fear of what you think of me.
Yeah.
Fear that if you really knew who I was, you wouldn't like me. And that fear of what you think of me was the worst prison I was in. It was worse than the prison I actually physically went to. You know what I mean? That fear of what other people think of me will keep me trying to be who I think you want to see. And so if you want to see a real criminal defense lawyer, then I got to be this badass.
Yeah.
I got to to bark the way the a big dog barks,
Yeah.
and so a lot of that was just not believing in me,
Mm.
right, and not being okay with me, right. In other words, I don't like who I am, and I don't think that I'm
Mm.
good enough, right,
And
and
yet,
I don't,
all
but
of
I
these
don't.
people were looking up to you. I mean, you had all of these people that just saw you as, I mean, you were the superstar, man. I keep saying the 80s and the 90s, you were the superstar. So,
But keep in mind, though, I didn't know that it was low self-esteem.
wow.
See, and I didn't know it was ego,
Mm.
right? That's why I'm trying to tell you that if you would have came to me and said, Ken, you just have a huge ego, I'd have said, no, I'm just confident. I used to didn't think I could do this, but once I started winning cases, I could do this. So now I'm just confident, and I'm still. But I remember walking into my office sometimes on the weekend and looking around at everything I had built, thinking, God, man,
Mm-hmm.
like not believing it was me that had done it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Still not
Yeah.
believing in myself. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
And I mean,
And
by
so,
this time, you had the Deion Sanders case. I think you had an Ickey Woods case that was high profile, Peter Frampton. I mean,
oh
you
yeah,
had really, really high profile cases.
yeah. And I was frequently on Court TV as a commentator
Yeah.
and on CNN's, comment on those cases, and so I was
Yeah.
pretty. But even then, man, like I said, for somebody who's spiritually bankrupt,
Mm.
it doesn't look like it doesn't look like it's a spiritual. It really doesn't. And the reason
Wow.
for that is because I had thought that I had tried God.
Mm.
I really did. I
Wow.
really believed that, and I just kept thinking that. And so again, it's just
Wow.
a spiral, emotional spiral. And so by this time, like I said, it looks like that my wife is the problem. I've become more angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so she ends up telling me to leave the house. And so me and my brother have my younger brother, he worked for me. His name was George, and 2 years younger than me. And so we were living together in a condo down on the Ohio River.
Yeah.
And on one, so all these expensive condos, and
Mhm.
a lot of the athletes lived there. So I remember Jeff Blake was to my left, and my neighbor on my right was the catcher for the Cincinnati Reds. His name was Benito Santiago.
Yeah.
And so we partied all the time down there, me and my brother. And I remember going home to reconcile with my wife. And back then we only had pages. We didn't have text messages. And that's how me
Right.
and my brother communicated, through pages. But my brother took care of me. Um, and he wasn't hitting me back. And I remember becoming worried about him. And we found him. He had hung himself in the condo.
Mm. Mm.
And he's 31 years old.
Wow.
And he left me a note. And there's a empty bottle of Jack Daniels on the table. And to this day, Bishop, I don't think I've ever experienced that much pain in my life, because
Wow. Mm.
um, coming up,
Wow.
whenever we would leave the house, as young boys, my mother said, "Take care of your younger brother. Take care of your younger brother." You know what I mean? And so that was a huge. It gets back to God's plan. It was just like something that didn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And something I felt guilty about because I didn't see coming. And so I become angry at him, angry at
Wow.
God,
Mm.
and just angry and through the pain. And I remember thinking, at that time I was not alcoholic, I was not addicted to opiates, and I was still sober. I
Okay.
remember thinking, how can anybody get to the point where they want to kill themselves? And I really thought that.
Okay.
And I was angry at my brother. And years later, obviously, I was at that point too.
Yeah.
Um, but and so after that, I wasn't able to do any homicide cases for a few years. It really
Mm.
rocked my world, because
Wow.
again, I'm playing God, and I just
Yeah.
don't know that. See, whenever my family had problems, I could throw money at it. I could make a
Yeah.
call. So hey, Kenny, I can't make rent. Here's
Yeah.
some money.
Yeah.
Or I'm in trouble. Okay, let me call the prosecutor.
Yeah.
Or I need, right. And so I'm playing God and don't know that's what I'm doing.
Mm.
Right. And so when George was gone and I couldn't bring him back,
Wow.
there was truly that disconnect, right? Because it's like
Mm.
I'm I can't fix it.
Yeah.
And so I ended up hurt my shoulder a few years later lifting weights, and I got addicted to opiates. I was prescribed Percodan first, and then it Percocet, Percodan, and OxyContin. Um, now I'm practicing law, and I remember I would only take it at night
Okay.
because I couldn't sleep. My shoulder would go numb, so I'd take it at night, and it would take away the pain, the physical pain, Bishop. But I started noticing it was taking away the emotional pain too.
Mm. Okay.
Uh, and I remember thinking, nothing really. I would take the Percocet, and the pain would go away, and then I would be okay with everybody in my life. It's just like no, it's like everything was the way it's supposed to be.
Wow.
And so it was like an emotional lift too. And I remember thinking one day, well, what if I take it before I go to work? Um, I'm not taking it to get high.
Yeah.
What if I just
Yeah.
take it to it, right? And so I started doing that. And then what happened was um, what do you call it? The tolerance level
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
on opiates continues to grow.
Yeah.
And so now I'm taking 3 pills a day, and then 6 months later it's 6 pills, and then years later it's over 100 pills.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, it was
Wow.
crazy, man. And I remember that when I first got sober and the feds was investigating me, they thought that I was selling,
Mm.
and I wasn't. I'd done a lot of stuff, and I would. And God knows, and I had no shame in telling you all the stuff that I did, the
Yeah.
stealing, the lying. Um, I mean, I had an uncle, man, who had his leg amputated because his diabetes got so bad. I remember going to visit him simply to go into his medicine cabinet and take his painkillers. Now, here's a
Wow.
man that just
Wow.
lost his leg, and I'm going into his, can I use your bathroom, Uncle
Mm.
Butch? And I'm going into his bathroom, taking
Wow.
painkillers, and he out there with his leg just amputated.
Mm.
And those are the types of things that I did. Um, and so, I kept telling the feds that I was using. And,
And you're still practicing. I mean, you're still practicing law at this point.
oh yeah, yeah, man. So yeah, I'm still practicing law. I'm going, and it got to a point, man, where that addiction, um, like I said, after a couple of years, people think that you're using it to get high, and I'm taking it just to feel normal.
Okay. Okay.
Because if I don't get it, I start getting dope sick, and my brain has been wired. You see a lot of people getting skinny
Yeah.
and not eating and stuff because the brain has been rewired to tell you this is what you need. You don't need
Okay.
food. You don't need that. You had to
Okay.
get this, and so you're driven to
Wow.
do whatever you can to get it.
Mm.
And so whether that's lying, so I become a mass manipulator.
Okay.
And so you tell me, Ken, look, I know you got a problem. Somebody called you and said, Bishop Clay, can you come talk to Ken? Ken, yeah. So I'm gonna tell you whatever you got to hear, so you can get out of my face,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I'm gonna give you a side story. Bishop, I lost my brother.
Yeah.
I've been adopted. And I'm gonna give you a story that's gonna make
Okay.
you feel sorry for me, so I can go back and use where I need to use. Now,
Wow.
and so the family members, my wife, my kids, the ones who love us the most are the ones that we hurt the most.
Wow.
And
Did, you,
so
did your wife know you were addicted?
after a few years, she would find the pill, and I would lie. I'm gonna quit this. I know that I went too far, but I got a handle on this, Marvin. I'm gonna quit Monday.
Okay.
So right, and so I would, and then she would find a pill or something, and after a while, like I said, man, and when you live with a drug addict or an alcoholic like me, and for those that live, they know exactly what I'm talking about. There came a time in my household, man, where there was no more tears. There
Yeah.
was no more, please, Kenny, please stop. You've come so far in life. What are you doing? There was
Yeah.
no more, Daddy, what's wrong?
Wow.
My family had what I describe as shark eyes, right? Just dead eyes. When they seen me, it was just, they gave me that dead eye look, like, here he come again. Here he
Okay.
come again. And they go out to the other room, right?
Wow.
My last year using, my wife would give me a look
Mm.
that there was a cross between just sympathy and a cross between just being despicable. It's almost
Mm.
like
Mm.
she would just give me that look, man. That would hurt me so much. It was
Wow.
almost like, I feel sorry for you, but I hate you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
you know, and I didn't want to be like that.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I remember praying to God, man, thinking, you know, God, I know you didn't bring me this far to die a drug addict.
Wow.
But and my prayer was sincere, but please don't wake me up in the morning. I
Mm,
didn't have the courage to kill myself. But my
mm,
prayer was, you know what? If you just allow me not to wake up in the morning, let me die in my sleep. My wife will be better off. My kids will be better off. This whole world will be better off if I'm not here.
wow.
And I don't want to go through this one more day.
Mm,
I don't want to go through this one more day.
mm,
Please kill me in my sleep.
wow.
People say to, you know, that, well, God doesn't put on you too much, more than you can bear. And I don't believe that. I think God, we get stuff put on us more than we can bear so that we know we need God.
We need God. That's good.
Because
That's
if I
good.
could bear it, I don't need him.
That's right. That's
Like
right.
if I could bear all that stuff, man, what do
Yeah.
I need you for? God,
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
puts more on us, so that's at least for me,
Yeah.
where I'm like, to where I just give up.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, you know what? I surrendered. Oh,
Yeah.
my habit, my last 2 years of using was $1,000 a day. And
Wow.
so that meant that I had to go, I'm paying a doctor to write me scripts illegally. And
Wow.
I need a script a day in my last 2 years. You can only get one script in your name of Oxycontin a month, right?
Okay.
30 day, right? And so now I need
Wow.
30. And so now
Wow.
I got to use your name. I'm sorry, getting clients' names, paying
Wow.
people. Can I use your name to have this doctor write a script? I'll give you $50,
Mm.
right? It's the
Wow.
only way to win that battle is to surrender.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. Boy, I hate to stop you midstream, but I just feel like
yeah,
we somebody is watching this right now, and you can relate to everything that Ken is saying. I mean, the details may be different in your life, the circumstances and the situations may be different, but what you can relate to is that hole in your soul. What you can relate to is that no matter what you try to fill it up with, nothing seems to fill it. What you can relate to is the anger. Like Ken, if you're that person that, you felt like you never fit, I mean, no matter what, didn't matter if you went to college, didn't matter if you were able to find a successful job, you just still feel like you don't fit. The good news is you've just been trying to fit in the wrong place. And everything that's happening in your life, believe it or not, is God shaping you so that you do fit, so that you fit in the right place. I need you to hear this. It's not too late. I don't care how bad it looks or how bad it feels. It's not too late. You're right on time. If you're hearing this, you're right on schedule. And today is the day for your entire life to change.
right.
So, Ken, I know I broke in on you, but I just feel
No. This is a good place to
great
stop. And like you
people.
said, man, my
Yeah.
sponsor used to say that to me. I would go, hey, man, they want to send me to prison. He's like, oh, okay, you're right on schedule.
Yeah. We're going to, man, I'm glad I locked you in for next week because we just got to, people need to hear the whole story. Brother, I appreciate you so much. I love you. And for all of you watching, I thank God every week you tune in. You never know what it's going to be like. But this coming week, you'll know because Ken's going to be back with us and we're going to finish this story. I love you. Have a great weekend.